What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you ladies and gentlemen. And for those of you wondering what's going on and why looks a little dark in the background, it's because I am recording this after New Year's happened. Happy New Year to everyone by the time this video comes out. Because what's going to be going on is I'm going to be traveling today. So by the time you see this, I will be on the road. So I figured I'd record this for you guys. And considering the topic at hand isn't exactly that urgent and we still have time to figure out what's exactly going to be going on, I figured, hey, there's no harm in pre-recording this, so I'm filming this at like 12:30 in the morning my time once we get the 0Z data from some of the models I've been wanting to look at, as well as more synoptic data and some more things from the Climate Prediction Center as well, because I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about that. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So here's the situation that we have right now. Let's go ahead and actually start with the Weather Prediction Center's latest outlook, the days 3 through 7 hazardous outlook. This was issued. So here's the situation that we have right now. This is what their graphic that they have pulled up. So generally, here's what we have going on, and this kind of validates the concern I have had for a while. So heavy snowfall is expected for much of the Midwest, starting around January 5th, which is on Sunday. From pretty much Kansas City all the way to near Cincinnati, freezing rain from southern Missouri to Kentucky, heavy rainfall in Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, those areas right there. So we're already starting to see that synoptic setup that we are paying attention to. And we're kind of seeing a general consensus as to how this pattern is going to potentially be. What we don't know exactly is how things are going to go. We don't exactly know where the storm is exactly going to be tracking, how powerful it's going to be. We just know that we have the conditions in place for a very powerful snowstorm, and that's the main thing that we're looking at. That's the main thing we are concerned about. And as more of these models continue to come in, and as these snowfall estimates continue to trickle in as well, they are quite concerning. However, at the same time, you have to remember we're still several days out. Things are very subject to change, and we will continue to update you on that front here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we are going to go ahead and dive right into the new data that we have pulled up. We have the GEM GDPS, we have the GEM RDPS, and a bunch of other runs we're going to go for. The reason we're going to go with some of these runs is because, first of all, we need to take a look at, okay, what's the setup going to be looking like, say, 3 days from now when the system starts to organize and develop. So we're going to use the NAM for that generally. This is as of today, and then moving on from there, we're going to go ahead and start with the 500 millibar winds right here, generally just to kind of see what the upper level atmosphere is going to start being. Generally, what we're seeing right now is generally more zonal flow, where we're not seeing any troughs, any ridges, and overall we won't see that much bad weather with this. This is a system, not a system, a scenario where you don't see that much bad weather. Then you start seeing a trough start to organize and develop currently over parts of the western coast, and you have this massive jet streak over the Carolinas, over Georgia, those areas right there. We're going to have to pay attention to as that ridge exits the United States. So that's what we're looking at kind of overall. And in terms of what we're looking at in terms of winter weather right here, I know we were talking in yesterday's video about the Alberta Clipper system. It's still going on, but it looks like the effects of it are a lot less than what we were anticipating. It's going to be less synoptic and more mesoscale, where yes, it does affect a lot of people and there's going to be a lot of heavy snow, but the amount of snowfall is going to be generally reduced because of the speed and because of the extent of the system. If we go ahead and show you what we were seeing at 12Z, we were seeing generally a swath of snow across much of the Midwestern United States. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this real quickly, and just one big blob over here. 0Z has downtrended on this quite a bit, down to about a half an inch to 2 inches at most, and that's generally what these kind of weak clipper systems generally do bring. However, the reason I am highlighting this is not because, this is going to be, this is just the clipper system and we talk about this extensively. No, we don't highlight it because of that. The reason we're highlighting it in this case is because this could potentially cause a lot of travel issues on the road. and it could cause some problems as the main event starts to develop. We have the NAM pulling that up right here. The NAM nest is showing a bit more aggressive right here. The GEM RDPS is in. They're showing a little bit more aggressive, generally bringing 1 to 4 inches of snow depending on where you are. Iowa's 2 to 4, in Illinois is 1 to 3, and in parts of Indiana it's 2 to 4. So I am highlighting that just to kind of give you an idea of what we're potentially going to be looking at for the first wave of snow that's going to be impacting much of the Midwest right here. But then moving on to more of our long-term threat with that main event snowstorm. That's we got to something we got to pay attention to, because we've been mentioning it in the last couple of videos. We're seeing the system start to organize and develop. We're also seeing a huge Arctic blast that's going to be behind it, and you're seeing a very powerful cold front that's going to be associated with it. That's going to be driving through the south and bringing freezing temperatures all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And then you have this high pressure system that's going to keep all this Arctic air in place, especially for the eastern United States. Climate Prediction Center is calling for a way below average week next week. We talked about that in yesterday's video. We're not going to rehash that. That's old news. But regardless of that, that's the situation that we're dealing with. Let's go ahead and look at precipitation type. We're going to show the GEM GDPS and the GFS runs to kind of give you the setup with this and kind of show you the kind of differences. And we can go ahead and first show you the 12Z run just for comparison, because the 0Z is also very helpful. But we first need to see what the 12Z was showing us and the context behind it, as well as to see how the system has evolved. So here's what we have. It organizes, it develops over here in Colorado and New Mexico, your classic Colorado low. And then it starts to move and develop in Oklahoma. The low pressure system moves through the Midwest, brings a lot of snowfall. It's generally a more slow moving type of system, but brings heavy snowfall across much of the Midwestern regions. Then it exits the United States, brings some snowfall to the Appalachian regions, and kind of that's generally what we have going on right there. Now let's go ahead and compare that to the 0Z right here. 0Z has the system developing a not too unsimilar, I would say. Although I will say this rain snow line, it has pushed up a bit further to the north, which is kind of what I expected, because in yesterday's video I was talking about how far our southeast systems are going according to the runs, and I was a bit skeptical about that because of some synoptics behind that. For example, it depended on how far south the jet goes. It depended on how those height lines will start to adjust aloft, and a few other factors that I will not get into in this video. But regardless of that, those are some of the concerns I had. And it seems like that rain snow line is pushing a bit further to the north, which is what I was expecting all along. So that's what we have going on. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Just out of curiosity, I want to see where the trough sets up compared from the 12Z compared to the 0Z. 12Z was definitely a bit stronger as well. You had those heights really starting to wrap around. And if we go ahead and show you the 0Z right here, not too unsimilar, I would say, although I will say that it does appear to me that the trough is a bit more, not as straight, like it's not as linear, and it's a bit more curved, which favors that more northward push towards maybe Chicago, northern parts of St. Louis, Springfield, Illinois, Indianapolis, Columbus, instead of maybe Cincinnati, St. Louis getting a lot of snow, which of course there's probably still going to at this current rate. It depends on how this whole system pans out. But regardless of that, if we go ahead and show you that precip type, it really barrels through much of the Midwest. Pennsylvania could definitely get hit pretty hard. I know Maryland could also get hit pretty hard by this system, especially if it stays north of that rain snow line. But if this run does hold, in my opinion, it mainly will be the case unless it ends up getting some mixed precipitation in that, which is always a possibility, and we do not want to see that, because I will say this: if you are in that mixed precipitation line, you are getting, in my opinion, the worst part of the storm, unless you are seeing over a foot of snow, which kind of equalizes that out. But I would say the reason I would say that is because all the ice and all the sleet and all that stuff, it takes a lot less sleet and ice to shut down airports, close roads, knock down power lines than snow. And also another thing, and I keep harping on these videos, is ice has zero friction. If you try to break in a quarter of an inch of ice, good luck. It's not going to happen unless you can get onto some grass and use the friction from that. True story, that happened to me, by the way. But basically, you're not going to be able to stop. It's going to cause a lot of car accidents, all that stuff. A quarter of an inch of ice is way worse than 6 inches of snow, and I will tell you that firsthand right there. I'd rather have 6 inches of snow than any type of ice whatsoever. So that's what we have for the GEM GDPS. If we go ahead and show you the GFS run, also shifting the rain snow line a bit further to the north. I want to go ahead and see what the jet looked like in particular, just to kind of see what we had. We had a bit more of a bit more of a stronger jet further to the south, with that jet streak pushing in throughout much of the deep south, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas right there. At least where the strongest part of the jet was, and it was quite linear compared to the 0Z. It's a bit more, it's a bit pushed a bit further to the north, actually, by quite a bit. 12Z, the strongest part of it was in central Mississippi and Alabama for comparison. Now it's up to northern Mississippi and Alabama, shifted about 150 miles or so. So that's quite a bit of a change right there, and that's what's ultimately causing the system to push further to the north. We'll go ahead and show you the precip type. Ultimately, same setup as what we had before. 12Z, you had the system organizing and developing, the rain snow line really pushing far to the south into Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Carolinas right there. I thought it was a bit unrealistic. The 0Z seems to have corrected for that, and this is, in my opinion, a more realistic scenario right here as this pushes further to the north. And ultimately, what that's going to do is Chicago is more in the line of fire. Detroit's going to be more in the line of fire. Toledo, not Columbus, well, also Columbus, but Cleveland is going to be more in the line of fire, and that could potentially bring more snow to Pennsylvania. Yeah, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, especially the D.C. area, Philadelphia, Delaware, New Jersey, even New York City could be in the line of fire, although by that point the winter storm will have weakened, so I wouldn't be particularly that concerned if you are in New York City right now. So that's what we have going on. Now the main question is, what's the snow accumulations going to be like? What's the temperatures going to be like as well? So we'll go ahead and show you those snow accumulations right now. Let's go ahead and start with the GEM GDPS with the current 0Z total snow accumulations. We can't show you the Euro. I wish they could get their stuff out faster, but unfortunately by the time I'm recording this video, it's the 0Z isn't out yet, but I wouldn't say that they're going to be too far behind both the GEM GDPS and the GFS right here. So here's what we have for the GEM GDPS. If we go ahead and show you some of the graphics right here, GEM GDPS. First of all, the GEM GDPS wants Kansas City getting in the line of fire. It wants Columbia getting in the line of fire. St. Louis stays just in the north of it, but they still get potentially up to a foot of snow. Indianapolis, 16 inches right there in the Chicago area. About 6 inches in Chicago proper. Northwest Indiana, 6 to 8 inches, with the potential of some lake effect going in with that as well. And in the East Coast, over here, lake effect's going to play a bit of a role, but that is going to be a bit earlier before the system arrives. But overall, Ohio is very much in the line of fire. Definitely could see over a foot of snow from this as well from the GEM GDPS run right here. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to that right here. But compare that to the 12Z. Definitely pushed a little bit further to the north. It definitely put more areas in the line of fire, but overall, you're not seeing that much of a change. Yeah, you could say there's a little less snow in Illinois, in Indiana, and those areas, but it's also more concentrated as well towards maybe those areas closer to the rain snow line. So we're going to have to be very mindful of that as well. Let's go ahead and also show you the GFS run as well. Here's the 0Z GFS, and we're going to use these sectors right here. 0Z GFS has really the St. Louis area getting hammered, areas especially to the north of St. Louis, potentially getting up to 20 inches of snow right there. I'm going to be honest, I'd say that's a little unrealistic, although I will say, considering that the Europeans been also really screaming about this run and about these storms, this storm as well, I will say I think 12 to 18 inches is definitely more plausible than it was in the last couple of days. So that's what I'm thinking in that regards as to seeing these model runs. right here. That's what we're seeing, at least in the Midwest and the East Coast. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Washington, D.C. could potentially get 2 to 4 inches of snow. If you're in Maryland, anywhere from like 4 to 6 inches of snow, unless you're in the Appalachian regions. Western Pennsylvania also looks like it is going to now be in the line of fire with this system. So we are going to have to pay attention to that. For like, we're looking at that. Although granted, some of this is from a previous snowstorm, but I still think 6+ inches, especially for Pittsburgh, especially for areas in the Pennsylvania T, especially for areas around Erie, could be plausible. At this current point, Philadelphia could get some snow. Delaware could get some snow. Southern Jersey is also looking like it could get some snow, according to the GFS. And this is a bit of a shift from quite a bit of a shift by quite a lot, by a few hundred miles compared to what we were seeing previously. Now it's before it put the South in the line of fire. Now it's putting the Midwest in the line of fire. And I generally am leaning more towards the 0Z GFS being a bit more accurate, mainly because, number one, a snowstorm, for example, of this caliber in Tennessee, Kentucky, and especially in North Carolina, has not happened in quite a while. And climatologically, it's extremely unlikely with the synoptic setup that we have going on right now. And since this synoptics has set up with the trough and all that area has pushed this system way farther to the north, I'm generally more supportive of a Midwestern scenario than Upper South scenario. But with that being said, though, I do think the main concern for you guys in these parts is the freezing rain by a long shot. Like, we're looking at potentially up to 1/3 of an inch of ice for Southern Illinois, for Kentucky, especially in those Appalachian regions, in those areas right there. And that's going to be it's going to cause a lot of issues for many areas in the Upper South, so we're going to have to pay very close attention to that as well. Let's also go ahead and show you what the temperatures are going to be looking like as well as this system pushes through. As that high pressure system starts to move into the United States from Alberta, Canada, and Manitoba and those areas as well, you're starting to see that really creep in, particularly starting around Tuesday morning, when you start seeing these temperatures, especially in the south, really get below freezing. Like, let's go ahead and show you this once again. We're looking at temperatures not even at 30 degrees in Montgomery, Alabama, and not even cracking 40 in New Orleans over here. That's going to be quite the shock, I'm sure, for many people in the South. For Houston, it has gotten a little bit better. You're still going to be cracking around 40 degrees or so. Not as much as like the 30s that we were seeing previously, but still you're going to be needing to watch this very closely. But where it's going to affect the most is the Midwest, as this high pressure system continues to stay over there. And as we continue to get into the morning right here, we're looking at temperatures in the single digits. Wind chills could potentially bring those temperatures down even colder as we get into next week as well. I know it's a little bit out there, but look at these temperatures right here, and that should just kind of show you what this Arctic blast could potentially do for much of the Midwest, for much of the South, for much of the mountainous regions, all those areas as well. And this is something you're going to want to pay attention to as well, because especially if wind chill advisories, wind chill warnings go out as a result of the system. Because another thing this is going to do is it's going to cause the system to stay there, not the system, but the snow. It's going to cause the snow to stay there. It's going to make cleanup a little bit more tougher, because sometimes you can rely on a little bit of melting for it to help you if you are cleaning up. Now that's not going to be nearly as much of the case, especially in the Midwest right here, which could potentially see that over 1 foot of snow, is what we've been seeing with a lot of these model runs. So we're going to have to pay very close attention to it. But by and large, this is a very serious situation that I'm continuing to watch, and a very serious situation I'm going to continue to closely watch, not just because of the caliber of it, but also because of the timing. The timing of the system is going to be impacting in the weekend, and I know a lot of college students that start in the first full week of January this year are going to potentially be impacted by this as well. So we're going to have to watch this. The system organizes and develops. It moves through starting Sunday morning in the parts of the Midwest, and then into Monday. It really starts to ramp up for a lot of areas. So it's one of those scenarios where we're going to have to watch, because a lot of colleges, students, and a lot of people who are starting to get back to work are going to be affected by this, and this is going to cause a lot of travel issues going forward. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out and it helps us get more people engaged with weather. If you want to hang out with us at Storms United, be sure to join our Discord server. We are talking about this 24/7. We are watching this very extensively. The Discord server will be in the end screen, so feel free to join it. We would really appreciate that. Start 2025 off with some new members. Shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. Link is in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.